Oh, never mind. I think they're coming.
Will not be embarrassing at all.
Mr. Vice Chair, do we have the Vice Chair in the building? Has anyone seen our Vice Chair?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. We're going to use every bit of our time today and maybe more.
Tell staff not to stop
Y'all
me
can
while
thank
walking
David
this
for
way.
that.
No, you can take our staff. I won't throw which staff under the bus.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Marion County Board of County Commissioners Annual Strategic Planning Workshop. If you'll please join me in standing for the pledge.
Whoa, good job.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you'll go ahead and call roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Chairman Stone?
Here.
Vice Chairman Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Bryant? Here. Commissioner Gold?
Here.
Commissioner Zalek?
Here.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you to those that are attending in the audience today. It's nice to look out to see the crowd for a workshop that we're going to be holding today. We are going to do things a little bit differently than what we've done in the past, and we're going to begin with the end in mind. So first on our agenda today is to work through creating a unified vision for a better Marion County. And based on the individualized submissions, I'm confident that we all want to be visionaries for the future, and yet we're stuck in the financial position of today. We're going to talk about the numbers a little bit later, but before that, we're going to craft a unified vision and determine what this dynamic board believes should be our strategic priorities. So I've taken the liberty to present some of those on our agenda, but they may be different after we get everyone's input. So what we're going to do is actually craft our vision statement first. After crafting the vision statement, we will then look at the priorities, and you're going to have a couple of sheets of paper when we get to the front, and you'll be able to actually determine what do you believe our priorities should be. So we must look to the future of what it should be and then decide what we can invest in. So with that, let's get started. So if you'll please join me around front, and if you can choose your seat, and then I'll take what's left.
Over here.
Over here. We're all going to get up and we're going to go to the front. We will be coming back to this side, but for the first 30 minutes plus, we're going to be down front.
might want to go around because that's.
Yeah, we may need to go down. There's little.
That's why
That's why the seats are here. So, Commissioner Gold, do you want to sit here?
No, I can't sit back and read lips. My face is behind us.
It doesn't matter. We're only interested in the conversation in this front row right here. And Amanda is going to be our scribe. I think I've got a little bit of feedback. I'm sure there, okay, thank you. So before you, we have the vision statement ideas that everyone put together, the individual. So if you would please take a look at those. And in that, we're going to work through them, and we're going to talk about what elements do you like the most. So I think all of you got this a few days ago, so perhaps you've already had a chance to look at them. I'll give you just a minute, and once you've read through some, just start to call out what elements do you like, and we'll name them out.
Can't see with that.
I like everything in number 3.
All right, so maybe identify what elements. Because I think we probably have different elements in all 8 of these that we'll be able to craft together, unless this board is unified that number 3 is the vision statement.
No.
I'll get us started. I like Marion County as home to, as the beginning.
You want to start?
Okay. So,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
So you all have 8 that have been listed. Those are the 8 that were submitted by the different departments. Or sorry, not the departments, but the leadership teams. So we all worked together, we came up with them. These are the 8 that were submitted to us. So they're in no particular order. Some of the teams presented 2 and 3, some teams presented 1. So as we go through this, if you want to pull out pieces of different ones that you like, and I can throw them up on the board. Commissioner Stone starting with Marion County Home 2. So if we want to start with that, and then anybody else wants to add anything else?
At this point, we're just calling out elements.
Well, what we should have is Marion County mic drop. It's just, I mean, can't get better than us.
That's, well, okay.
Yeah. And, or in your face.
In your face?
Yeah, Marion County, in your face. I didn't see that one on here. That must be number 9.
You got anything you want to add? What element?
I already told you.
You're definitely committed to number 3.
I'm committed to number 3.
All right, well, I'm not.
I mean, and here was the problem with trying to craft a vision statement. So in our leadership group had a lot of discussion about it, and it was, are we crafting a vision statement for Marion County, or are we crafting a mission statement for Marion County government?
No.
And that was where, you know, there was much discussion about, okay, what are we trying to craft a vision statement for? Because while we may be crafting a vision statement for Marion County as a whole, we're Marion County government, we're not the private sector, and so we have to deal with the reality of what we're tasked to do as government. And
Agreed.
it was, you know, it's
What?
I mean, I think that there's not a person in this room that doesn't aspire for Marion County to be everything that's on this paper. But I also think that we have to be realistic in understanding that there are things on this paper that as Marion County government, it's out of our hands.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and just ask that we identify the elements that we like in some of these statements that have been put together, because I think that we have an opportunity to actually put a vision statement together just as we have a mission statement. And when we finish, I think that will help be our North Star going forward and as we make some decisions to invest in. So I appreciate the time that everybody has already put into this. So now we're just really looking to mesh them all together. So, did you have something?
No, I was just trying to figure out, like, is it possible to have either the team leader or one of the commissioners present their particular topic? So we kind of understood the background of each one of these and maybe how they got there. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking if you look
Or
through.
we just throw it all on the board and
Yeah.
we can just start saying we like. I mean, I like a lot of this stuff. I mean, whether it's vibrant or thriving or.
That's exactly what we're
Exceptional.
looking for. So
Yeah.
vibrant and thriving, those are some adjectives that we
yeah.
want to put on
Inspirational,
there.
Aspire.
Yeah, the exceptional
Those are great
quality.
words.
Yeah.
Did you have something? And Mr. Commissioner, or excuse me, Mr. Administrator, feel free to chime in a little.
I would like to follow up a little bit on what Commissioner Bryant shared with us. And Commissioner, that I believe it was a struggle that every team dealt with. I think when we craft a vision statement, it's a vision statement for Marion County, but you cannot leave the community out of it. You, as a board of county commissioners, you do a lot as a government agency that influence and impact the future of this community. I think you need to keep both in mind.
Yeah, it'll
And what
balance.
we want to see this community be in the future with influence from this government body.
Right, but
Okay.
I also think that we have to be careful as the government body to not put stuff down in a vision statement that we have no control over.
Agreed.
That was our,
Yeah. We're just describing
Consternation.
what we want the future to look like for us in a utopian world.
Yeah.
But what we'll work towards in becoming or enhancing. So we've got vibrant, thriving, exceptional.
Like we did a strategic plan for Marion County, which was the county agency including the commissioners, and we developed a mission statement. Our mission statement was to lead in public services. Are we there? I don't know. We are working on it, but that is our goal. That's our objective. That's our mission. And I believe the vision statement from the board taking us to the next level. And what do we see the community as a whole with the influence that can be implemented by Marion County as a board?
okay,
Well, number
I get
one,
all
we
that.
can- Yeah, number one, we can implement, you know, except for we already have the abundant resources, but the rest of that we can implement.
Commissioner Gold, do you have something you want to add?
I was just saying everything Monier said was on number one.
Yeah.
No,
On
it
number
was.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
on
look at
number
number
one.
one. And, I mean, it kind of puts it.
It
there.
really is a very good one. The cutting edge technology is a little,
That's where we're going. That's why it's a vision. We vision.
but I also think you can't leave growth out of there. I mean, we are going to have to
We could put smart
be
growth. or
very,
something.
not smart growth.
Not smart growth. That's not good word. You're right.
We're, but seriously, I mean, if
So
we're
write
really
smart
gonna
growth.
talk
Not
about,
smart growth.
if we're
smart
really
growth
gonna
is
talk
just
about what we want our community to look like moving forward, how our community grows is going to be extremely important, because if it's out of control, sprawl, that's going to affect our natural resources. That's gonna affect some of the things that draw people here, so you can't leave that
So
out.
As I looked through these and I read each one of the things that I found in common with the majority of them is we want to keep our quality of life, right? We want to keep what we've always known Ocala and Marion County to be. We don't want to lose that, but at the same time, we don't want to say we're going to stop and stay where we are today.
Absolutely
We want
not.
to grow, but we want to be smart about it.
Right.
And as you look through these, you see number 1 touches on that, number 2 touches on that, number 4 definitely touches on that, number 5 definitely touches on that. So you see a lot of these kind of have the same theme, even though they don't say the same thing. So I think that if we maybe take pieces of each one of these,
Right.
and that's what's so great about having these 5 different teams and coming up with these 5 separate ideas, right? Is that you can put them all together and get something really great out of it.
And something that is more concise. Number 3 is great, but it's very wordy, so we need to be a little bit more concise with our wording.
Exactly. Also, for the idea of, continuous improvement, that would incorporate being wise about our things. So I like that out of number 4 into number 1. So, if we took number 1 like is our basis one, and then put continuous improvement, we'd have to reword it, maybe wordsmith it a little bit, but insert that continuous improvement in there. Because, okay, we are good, but we're better than the rest, but we're even going to be better than we are now. Bless you.
God bless you.
Commissioner Zalek's kind of quiet down there.
I noticed that.
I think you guys are overcomplicating this process.
It's not complicated. If we just, I think it can be really simple.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
About number 1, remove the cutting edge technology. Look at item number 3, look at the last paragraph or last sentence on there. Well known for the beauty of our well-renowned natural resources. And then we probably should think about consideration somewhere with the horse capital statement in there, kind of combine all these.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amanda can craft this appropriately into a statement, I'm sure.
Yeah, quality of life, I love that. Thriving community.
If I may.
Yes,
With the
absolutely.
cutting edge technology, the reason for cutting edge technology, it's where we're going, we're headed in that direction. We are, because we're going to try and bring in companies that have, as we diversify our economy, companies that do use cutting edge, like Chewy. If you see how they process their plant, they're using cutting edge technology over at Chewy.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we do have it, it's just something that we don't. And FedEx is using some cutting technology at the FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
We do have it, it's just not something we're known for, but we should be known for it, and we're going to try and get more of that, because as we diversify our economy, we want companies with cutting edge technology. We have the flying car here in Marion County. The people that make the flying car is out in Denellen. I mean,
So would you
can't give us
say,
more cutting edge technology than a flying car.
so would you
know?
say outstanding resources would fit that?
Yeah, but
It
It can cover all of
broadens it,
that.
I
it
guess.
broadens that to outstanding resources.
or something, because we have some really unique, wonderful, things here that are really cutting edge technology here in Marion
Mm-hmm.
County that they don't pretty much have anyplace else.
And I think we can't leave out responsible government.
Yeah.
And going back to Commissioner Gold's with horse capital of the world, yeah, you're getting that.
Fiscally responsible government.
So looking at number 1, you've captured a lot. Marion County, home to exceptional quality of life, built on first-class services, diverse opportunities, outstanding resources. And what do we want to look back and be known for? I mean, what else do we see? Or is there a period there? Go ahead.
Because if we get too long, like you said.
It
we need
should
to
be
keep
really
it-
short.
Yeah, we should keep it short and.
Just probably 2 lines, less than 2 lines.
Yeah, it's supposed to be one sentence if you go through.
That's 1 sentence.
Yeah,
Well, we got one sentence with lots of commas.
Bingo, it's a running sentence, but hey.
So I
We're in
think
business
that
class,
as
not in
you
English
guys, as
class.
we look through some of this stuff, and even as you look over here at some of the stuff that we identified as our strategic priorities, I know it seems like there's a lot of commas, but I think that a lot of these things touch on those things, right? Because our first-class services, that talks about our leadership, that talks about our employee engagement, that talks about our promoting great experiences through relentless customer service, right? As a organization, but also as a community, providing those services. The diverse opportunities, that, I mean, we're continuing to grow, right? We're gonna diversify, whether it's business or our opportunities within our communities through technology or anything else that we have. Opportunities through even with the essential housing and different things that we've been talking about so much this year in that area. Our outstanding resources also can touch on everything from our physical resources, our environmental resources, and I think you just need something to finish it off. So one of the things, I mean, responsible government is something that was listed, I mean, in number 3. It talks about well thought out planning, protecting our growth, and then there was another one that talked about being fiscally responsible.
Amanda, look at the last couple words of number 2.
So number 2, we aspire to enhance and preserve our natural resources while balancing economic opportunity and quality of life.
Like that, while balancing economic opportunity and quality of life.
Okay?
I like the end, add it to the end.
So,
Or is it
and,
repeating
Quality
itself?
Well, it is kind of repeating.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
well,
well,
we can always erase something.
Yeah, this is just a draft.
Balancing, I'm sorry, economic opportunity.
Too many ands and quality of life.
We can-
And quality of life.
I don't know your management for it, 98.9, that was like, this is pretty much management for 98.9, and
I do think we have responsible government. Marion County home to exceptional quality of life, built on first-class services, diverse opportunities, outstanding resources, and balancing economic opportunity and quality of life. Okay, so.
Well, and we also, quality of life, we talk about right here.
plus
So we
the
have quality of life
two
twice.
ands. 2 ands is gonna get you in trouble.
Just change it with while balancing. Take out these.
It's okay, it doesn't have to be
While
English,
balancing
it's just so
economic
basic.
opportunity and quality of life.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be perfectly
Yeah,
grammatical.
but,
Should be close though.
yeah, yeah.
Hold on. Why don't you take out the quality of life there in the beginning? Quality of life built on Marion County, home
yeah,
to
it does
exceptional
good.
first-class services, diverse opportunities.
Can I erase?
Uh-huh.
First-class services, diverse opportunities.
Expanding resources.
I'll balance, yeah.
Outstanding resources, what are we trying to say with that?
I'm thinking it could mean just about anything from our natural resources to the diversified, outstanding resources that we have to mix and mingle within the community. I mean, you can almost look at it in a lot of different ways.
It combined natural resources and the human resources we have here in Marion County. And it touches on also our fiscal resources that we have to deal with.
I mean, we've got great opportunities, diverse opportunities, outstanding resources.
Again, you got economic opportunity, diverse opportunity, but redundancy.
Well, and 2, you have like the diverse opportunities and economic opportunities.
Right, that's redundancy.
They go
Mhm.
there.
We may be able to take
those
out,
two
so
together.
what's the pleasure of the board? Yeah.
Erase it.
Erase the second, economic opportunity.
Erase the whole thing.
No,
What
ma'am.
do you think? I'm not gonna actually.
No, I here. So can I just throw something out? Because our team went through this type of thing too, and we got real wordy and came back, and got real wordy and came back. And I think that, when you're trying to launch this vision statement, it shouldn't look too close. I mean, this looks to me too close to missional, right? It starts to get more into a missional statement, like when you start naming out services and opportunities and, different things like that, versus being more like the guy that was working outside of the cathedral. Some of them said, hey, what are you doing here? Well, I'm working to feed my family, right? And the next guy said, I'm just trying to make ends meet. And the third guy knew what he was doing. He was saying, well, I'm getting the opportunity to build a cathedral, for the world to see, right?
This is
There's a difference there, and that's why we came back to this notion of thriving, right? Why just live anywhere when you can thrive in Marion County? It's because we have affordable place to live. It's because we've got great government. It's because, you know, we've got opportunities for you to start your own business or have technology. You can thrive in a place like Marion County because we're set up foundationally, because we have all of those elements to be successful. So you can go live anywhere, but you can thrive in Marion County. You can live life at a level above the rest because you can have the opportunity to live here because all those elements are set up. I think we need a vision statement that looks maybe that's the wrong words to use, but hopefully the notion is correct in that we, you know, we're one of the best middle class counties and places in the country, right? Yeah. We got great housing, we got affordable place to live, we got great opportunities. You can be to any coast in an hour, you can be to any spring in 15 minutes. I mean, you know, you can do so much here. And we didn't even talk about the essence of our community and family and a place where family still matters, you know? All of that comes back to, in my mind, to a place where you can thrive, not just live.
I like it.
So I think when we get, you know, too caught up in these other elements, we miss it, and then people are going to miss the vision if we try to tell them this statement. How many people are going to remember that after you told it to them? If you can't remember after you told them the vision statement the first time, then I think we missed it. Then we're into mission statements where we figure out how to do those things, right?
So
Our vision statement should be something easy and something where every single person gets it, no matter whether you're in the horse industry or you're retired and on top of the world, right? You should be able to get why you love Marion County.
So number 8 is a world-class community where you can thrive.
It's one of them. I mean, you can put thrive with almost anything. A thriving horse community, a thriving spring.
How about
I like
diverse?
thrive.
A diverse world-class community where you can thrive.
Say that again. A diverse, world-class community where you can thrive.
Because think about how, I mean, we have certain elements in our community that are very different.
Yeah, but you probably can't. Again, when you fundamentally keep going back,
It just
in my
adds a
mind, you
little
really
bit more.
can't. You can't be successful today. You probably couldn't thrive if it wasn't a diverse community.
Right, so that's
Right? So, I mean, when you keep drilling it back, let's try to get to one word or two words that really we're trying to base it all on.
world class.
I mean, the hardest thing is to get to one or two words.
Right.
Right? That really encapsulate all of those ideas.
Well, let me just say though, with the environment outside of now, in the world, just as the world as a culture, diverse may be a welcoming word.
I don't know.
I'm just putting it out there. A diverse.
I'm thinking that our statement, though,
Yeah.
could be like Marion County thrives, right? Or Marion County, you know, something like that.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
all of those other things you can have under there. It is
Right.
because we are diverse. It is because we have springs. It is because we're the horse capital of the world. It is, you know what I mean?
Right.
You can have all of those elements and almost like different little logos and little
can have
things
your
and
taglines.
taglines to all that stuff. But what is the fundamental one thing you want somebody to walk away with that, hey, where you're living today, yeah, you're probably doing okay, but you could thrive in Marion County. That's the difference, right?
I like it.
Something like that. Anyway,
Plus also
maybe not, might be the wrong word.
It's a one-liner.
Yeah, well,
We need a
mean,
one-liner.
It can be, absolutely, it can equate to
We need something that
anything.
fits on a billboard.
I
in bold.
like the
four
thrive.
to 8
Letters,
words.
right? Right, Nick?
Yeah.
What do you
If
think?
it's billboard,
Billboard.
maximum 8 words.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
so.
Minimum 4,
Your body
maximum 8.
language says
Yeah, it has 8.
I'm just trying to warm up.
And I put a little bit of snacks. I asked to have a little bit of snacks just in case y'all needed a little.
Yeah, we don't want Commissioner Bryant getting hungry.
Angry. But yeah.
No
num-
hangry.
Number 8, actually, if you go in marketing, you're not supposed to go over 8 words. No billboard. Number 8 has 8 words. So,
Well, we'll wait for Commissioner Gold to return. Any other thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think you summed up a really nice thought process. Do we want to keep it just that simple?
yes. Because, or we're better than you are.
Oh, no.
Hey, that's nice and simple. No, but
No.
this is a nicer way of saying we're better than you are. At least some people have a sense of humor.
I'm laughing.
Yeah,
I'm laughing inside.
Yeah, I noticed that you're laughing on the inside.
On the inside.
But I agree, or we could do Thrive in Marion County.
Or just thrive here.
Thrive here.
Marion County, thrive here.
You could do a lot.
I mean, there's a lot of different things
Yeah.
you could do with it. It's
You could
just,
do a lot of taglines with that, you know,
Back to the beginning, Marion County, mic drop.
have your hashtag. Thrive
Marion County thrives.
Thrive in Marion, thrive here. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do with that.
well, the difference is, right, I mean, you can have a good job and have a bad family life, right? And you wouldn't be really all that happy. You can have it in reverse, where you have a great family life and you have a crappy job. You know, you can have a great business and then, so if all of those things don't come together where those opportunities exist, it's tough, right? Or what if your family lives here, but you couldn't find the job or the opportunity to fulfill your financial needs, right? I mean, the cool thing about Marion County is you can do all of that. There's a difference, right? You can go to Orlando, but then you can be stuck in traffic for 2 hours each way to work. That's not thriving. That's not living. That's
So is,
something else.
A lot of stress out there.
Right. I mean, Marion County's in a perfect position to have that quality of life and family balance and work opportunities that bigger communities lack and that smaller communities just don't have the same opportunities available to them.
so would that, just as a thought, would that be more of like the marketing? The marketing, Marion County thrive here
Yeah.
versus a vision of Marion County home to exceptional quality of life, built on first-class services, diverse opportunities, outstanding resources, and responsible government?
Well, I think we should change our mission statement to that
Right.
and use the marketing tagline. I mean, that is the vision statement, right?
Right.
I think that you're right, but in the paperwork you gave us, what you're saying would be a mission statement and not a vision statement.
And he's correct, vision. Also Durham County in.
Because, I mean, our mission statement
Okay.
is a little bit clunky as well, at best.
And we have no competition as far as I know.
Sorry, Monier.
It's okay.
UK would compete with us using Thrive Tag.
So, yeah, okay. So let me just ask, so tell me again, how do you all feel about Marion County thrive here?
I like it.
Yeah. Marion.
That's 4 words. It's something that people can remember. And I just checked online. Durham County in the UK uses the word thrive. I didn't have anything come up in the United States.
Yeah, we checked
that
it.
showed
We were pretty good.
So I
Were
mean,
you?
so it would put us distinctive,
Yeah. Thrive here.
Except for I did like number 1 because that was our groups. But anyway.
Well, I think they were all good.
They're
I mean,
all really,
without-
they're all really good, but we're all touching the same
Yeah.
thing. At the
Exactly.
end of the day,
End of the day, that's
we're all
memorable.
trying.
It's all about
We're all
thrive.
trying to
Right.
live substantially above the common denominator, right? I mean, life that's full, and has all of those
Right.
essences. I mean, that's what we're
But,
trying to describe.
yeah, thrive here.
And we need a word that does that.
And thrive says
similar
it.
to when we read the book about Zappos, right?
Yeah.
When they were, when you're delivering a wow service, you're trying to get your customer to be like, wow, put them back. And I think that's kind of the same thing we want when somebody visits or comes or moves or is here. We want them to be like, wow, my community, just wow. I mean, you got to come experience this, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, and a lot of people do already, so
Sure.
let's encapsulate it.
I like the Marion County Thrive here.
So we had a world-class community where you can thrive, but
I think even
what
simpler
are you
is better.
suggesting? 4 words,
Yeah.
Marion County thrive here.
Like when we saw those lists in the book, it says Marion County,
thrives.
semicolon, or whatever that is,
Marion County
Mm-hmm.
Thrive.
thrive here.
Okay, so we're done with this.
I think,
Yep.
Are we done
I
with
think
this?
that may be more of
Yeah,
our.
we might want to go back after
mission.
we get this vision statement and kind
Exactly.
of just make sure our mission statement is tweaked to fit, but yeah,
I'll work with the administrator and.
that's a great idea.
Okay, so that moves us along. We're doing great, you all, on time, so based on what we've budgeted here. So thank you
So
for your
thrive here?
input.
Is that what we settled on?
Thrive
Marion
here.
County, Thrive here.
Perfect.
So
Good
what-
with that?
Good with that.
So what is it? Marion County Thrive Here?
Yep,
That's the vision?
Thrive here, yeah.
Thrive here.
that's a good tagline.
It's the beginning.
It's a good tagline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it a great vision or is it a good tagline? When I hear that, I hear a tagline. When I think of a vision, I think of what do I see my community? How do I see this place?
Then that's back to number 1.
Then it goes back to,
And then,
Number
and
one.
maybe thriving is a piece of that, and then you still have Thrive Here, Thrive in Marion, you still have Thrive on the Springs, you still have all of those things, because thriving is a part of your vision. But isn't your vision how you see this community? When other people
For the
look at Marion
future.
County, you want them to say, that is a diverse community that
That's back to
protects their.
number one, then.
That's, I don't know.
Right, well, then we're back to number 1. With yours, number 1, but Thrive Here, Marion County Thrive Here is a good tagline.
no, I think you're right, but I'm going to work with the administrator and bring it back to the board for them to take a look at another day.
Okay.
That way, that will give them an opportunity to,
Yeah, let it set in.
Yeah,
There's nothing
to-
wrong with letting it set in a little bit.
yeah, ruminate over all this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say it one more time so everybody can.
Marion County Thrive Here.
Commissioner Bryant?
That's the tagline, and then number 1 could be the mission.
Maybe we could take it back to our groups and then bring it back.
And so we'll put that out so that you'll have it. Yes?
Yeah,
You got something you want to add?
just, to me, tagline.
I
That's
agree.
not a vision
It
statement.
is a tagline. I mean,
And then number 1's
I like
missions.
Marion County, home to exceptional quality of life, built on first-class services, diverse opportunities, outstanding resources, and responsible government.
That's good.
I think it's also cool. Like, I mean, the reason why we came up with this one too, like, why be anywhere when you can thrive here, is because I think that puts in their mind, like, okay, for them to really, for people in general, right, for you to evaluate your circumstances and are you thriving or not, and do you have the opportunity to do that? We were looking at that as more of the vision statement than just thrive here, because you can, again, you can use that in multiple ways. But Madam Chair, I think if you took that and brought back a couple different variations of what we're trying to get at, right? We want people to have life in abundance,
Right.
And then
A
underneath it, put
prosperous,
number 1.
welcoming community.
full of opportunities, and yeah, I mean, all of those things as part of thriving, right? I mean,
Right.
if you're thriving, you are doing exceptionally well.
Exceptional, prosperous.
How about if you didn't do the home to exceptional quality of life, but if you're really wanting to do a statement, do the Marion County first-class services, diverse opportunities, whatever adjectives you want to use, you know, world-renowned natural resources, or you could put, you know, thriving, Marion County thrives with first-class services, diverse opportunities, whatever
That's a
adjectives you
great
want to
idea
use
behind
there. Make them, you know,
How
hem
about-
them
how
up,
about-
and then you
How
can
about Marion
use
County
that.
thrive with us?
Well, that's your tagline.
It's still a
That's not
tagline.
a
Mhm.
vision
It's not a
statement.
vision.
In my mind, that, I mean, I would be like, that's a tagline, that's a,
Or Marion County thrives with, going back to your point, Marion County thrives with quality of life, built on first-class service. I mean,
Or
those
put,
sort,
put all that, and then just put Thrive Here at the end.
and thrive here. There you go.
Marion County,
You
put
could-
all that blah, 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 but put the Thrive Here on the end, and then they kind of incorporates
Yeah,
that with
Marion-
the tagline.
And we could even start, Marion County thrives as the horse capital of the
But
world.
you don't want Thrives twice.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I mean, if you had Marion County thrives as da-da-da-da-da, and then
It's-
at the end, just thrive.
Thrive here,
Like in all
to
caps
end it.
or- Yeah. But also, if you go back and you look at number 4 and you replaced a prosperous and welcoming community with a thriving community that encourages continuous improvement, and then you have improvement and you have the quality of life. I mean, it doesn't have to be that one specifically, but if you replace some of the adjectives with the word thriving,
Let-
get all the elements in there.
Let's try couple statements and we will bring back
yes.
with the chairman.
No matter which one
That's-
of those you pick, though, the problem is you're going to be exempting part of the community.
Well, we're gonna do our best not to.
So
But, I mean, that's a good point. We want to make sure that we use the right wording that encapsulates everybody for everyone. And I like ending with thrive here. That's, okay, very good. I want to say thank you very much. I know it's painful when these types of workshops go on, but this is a good start, and I think it's going to help be our North Star. So, next step before we take our seats, if you'll look at the identified strategic priorities to support the vision statement, we've pretty much captured that thrive here. Choose your top 5, hand it over to Amanda. She is gonna check them off up here. These are the priorities that she's written out. And then we're just gonna look and see how that leads us going forward. So choose your top 5 from the identified list that you have, and we'll move forward. Excuse me.
Without my glasses, it's easier to see up there than it is here. No. The closer it gets, the blurrier it gets.
Having trouble reading it?
Oh.
I didn't bring my glasses. Are those cheaters? No, they won't work.
It's not to say that all these aren't important, but the ones that we really want to see focused on.
But some of them, like fire rescue and public safety, are the same thing. Pretty much.
We just took what everybody brought to the table here.
Because fire rescue is under. And leadership and 4DX kind of go together too.
You need to talk. This is a test.
He's gonna know which ones we picked.
Okay.
But you got a couple of those that are the same thing.
Doesn't matter.
That's good.
You don't have to write them all down.
It should all be separate ones.
You know what I mean? So,
Oh. All be different. Let me see. Yep, oh, we got 2.
Jeez, we could've just circled them on this page too.
So what?
So we could've just circled them on this page too.
That would've been too easy.
What's the matter?
But 2 as 1.
Same thing. You're welcome. Helped you.
Yeah.
He wants an extra vote on that one, obviously.
What's that? Infrastructure. Yeah.
His handwriting's worse than mine? Wow.
You can't read it?
Are we done?
Would you like them back? Would you like the list back? Anybody want their list back?
Not necessarily.
Do you have everyone?
Okay, so we've got 1.3, which that's sales tax. That's number 1. Then the 2s, diversified business, fire rescue services, infrastructure expansion.
Public safety and fire rescue, same
Yeah,
thing.
you could probably get rid of fire rescue services because public safety enhancements
And is
encompasses
the
all
sale-
of it. It's the
Is the
same.
reason
Yeah.
why you guys check the sales tax, is that just for infrastructure and public safety funding?
Probably.
If that's the case, then you could probably merge a bunch of those together.
Yeah, why don't you do that real quick, Amanda?
So how about?
How about
all
on this
pro-
board over here?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
You can do the same thing with,
4DX and leadership.
Yeah,
no.
40X leadership.
Well,
is it?
yeah,
All right, so
but-
we'll just call it public safety.
Yeah.
Yes,
there you
public
go.
safety.
And
yes.
public safety will also take care of fire rescue, right?
Yes.
Fire rescue, public safety.
Together.
And then we
And
have,
then part of the sales tax.
Yeah.
okay,
That's what we said.
Yeah,
just
but
keep
you know
people
what?
safe.
I don't think we should mix sales tax in with that because we,
Well, that's why I was asking, what did you
Yeah,
guys check the
no.
sales tax for?
well, I mean, we know
What did
that
you
it's
mean?
gonna include, you know, infrastructure, roads, and public safety capital, but it could possibly encompass some other things outside of that box. We know that we have to keep it narrow and focused, but there could be something else that we could put in there that we need to talk about.
And I'm thinking the expansion of, are we gonna actually, you know, determine, and Monier's gonna give us a little presentation as well, but is that something that we're gonna look at putting forward in the upcoming year?
And nothing on there said it, so I checked infrastructure expansion, but I meant just, really honestly was just talking about great infrastructure. That includes being able to maintain what we have.
Right.
You know, and so I
Okay.
think expansion could have been taken off of there and just infrastructure
Okay,
is fine. And I was thinking, I mean, when you say infrastructure, it can include, you know, sewer to
That's what I
septic.
was
mean, it can
thinking too.
include all of those
'Cause we-
elements.
Yeah, I did septic to sewer,
But-
which is
Under- could be
infrastructure.
the
So I don't know if you want to break that out
Sewer and
afterwards.
roads.
Yeah, septic to sewer. is
Afterwards,
under
we will.
infrastructure.
And that could also, I mean, water and sewer availability
and
fees would go
roads.
under there.
Right.
exactly.
Our garbage service, I mean, our trash service, I mean, all those things are infrastructure related.
And then that affects
Elements.
springs protection. You protect your springs if you
Yep.
have the right infrastructure.
Solid waste. All right, so we got public safety,
you want me to start
infrastructure.
marking these off?
Yes. Go ahead and just draw a line through them, and that way we'll know we've got them.
So I haven't wrote sales tax up there yet.
I think
Need
it
to
needs
write
to
that up
be
there.
its own priority.
Yep.
Yeah. Also with sales tax, we're looking at this coming year right now. We're not
Public
looking
safety,
at
yeah.
future.
Priority of it, so, I mean, one of the top.
Without sales tax, nothing gets, I mean,
Right.
let's be quite
Yep.
honest about this. Without our sales tax, a lot
We
of this
don't-
does not happen.
Correct.
2, 3, 2 more.
Yeah, if we have to rank them.
You didn't put diversified business yet.
Yeah,
And that got two.
that's
Diversified
next.
business?
Mhm.
Yep.
And leadership.
How about just the economic development?
That, yeah, that goes under.
That's fine.
That's same thing. Pretty much.
/ economic development.
And then the leadership.
And I think
with 40X.
leadership.
Yeah.
You can
leadership
just
and
leave that a
40X.
little broader as leadership.
Leadership,
Mhm.
yep.
I mean, yeah, you don't have to call out 40X. In general.
Yeah, it's just one of.
All right,
That's the top 5.
it is. All right, everybody feel good with those top 5?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're
As long as we
good.
put, yeah, I mean, under springs protection, we're going to talk about water in general, right, under infrastructure?
Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
under
Do you
the
see?
infrastructure.
Do you see essential housing in any of those five
it almost
priorities.
Part of
Part of
our
the
infrastructure.
Yeah, that's infrastructure.
And
thinking
so
about all
just
that
add
stuff kinda
essential
clumped together.
housing under infrastructure.
And then.
And even
actually,
into the
tourism
economic
mar-
development too,
yeah.
because
tourism
we have to have
marketing
the
goes under
housing for the
economic
employees.
development.
True.
So,
I'm sorry, what did,
Tourism, marketing would go under your economic development.
Yeah, it's all
because-
part of economic development.
tourism
Okay.
development, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Marketing.
tourism marketing.
Marketing.
Or just tourism.
Basically, wherever Loretta is.
Okay, so this will help us as we look to the budget planning process, because this is the kickoff to the budget.
Well, every one of those things falls, all
Yeah.
the rest of that stuff
Somewhere
falls
in
under
there.
here
Well,
at some point. So you can,
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty broad categories. I think
And-
they're essential to effective government.
yeah, all
Okay.
five are employee empowerment. And
Well, thank
Right,
you
that sounds
all.
really
I think
interesting, too.
we've done our part on this side, and you can take your snacks with you if you want to take them back. And we're going to return to the front, and Michael Thomas, is going to have a riveting presentation on the numbers.
I think it was there. You guys can have my snacks. There's too many carbs in them.
no carbs. There's no carbs, they're all protein, no calories.
No, yeah.
So are candy bars. And taco.
Maybe put it this way so they talk to you.
Yeah, probably take that.
Display when you didn't use it.
Well, because it wasn't the way I thought we were going to present.
Yeah, just a little bit. Maybe upside down, no.
But I would have thought. Nobody really told us how it was going to work. I don't remember. Did you tell me how it was going to work? I didn't know how it was going to work.
You need an extra whiteboard?
It worked out fine.
Where is Michael? Michael, you can tell us how thriving it's going to be.
Very good.
And thank you, Amanda, for leading us through that process.
You ready?
Yes, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Tomich, Budget Director in the Marion County Clerk's Office. Today's presentation format is going to cover the county's main operating funds that utilize either property taxes or special assessments as a revenue source. We're going to cover the general fund, the fine and forfeiture fund, the MS2 for law enforcement, and the fire and rescue and EMS fund. The discussion of each fund will start with a projection of one or more of the major revenue sources of that fund, followed by a financial forecast of the fund, including total revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And we'll begin with the general fund, and we'll start off with property tax projections. We're going to assume if the millage rate were to be held at 3.33 mils for the general fund, the property values are expected to increase between 5% and 6% over each of the next 5 years, and these are according to estimates provided by the State Office of Economic and Demographic Research, their revenue estimating conference, a recent one of December 11th, 2018. And given recent history and the sustained economic recovery, these estimates appear to be reasonable. So in my view, this is a revenue opportunity. 5 to 6% is pretty healthy growth following the recession, but we have seen that kind of growth as of late, and it's expected to continue. Next, the 1/2 cent sales tax, another major revenue source in the general fund, currently providing about $23 million per year for operations in the general fund. This 1/2 cent sales tax, this is not an additional sales tax. This is a shared amount of the base 6% that is collected by the state that is shared with counties. It's projected to grow at 4% annually, and that's an internal judgment from our office of 2% for growth and 2% for inflation. Recent trends, however, may indicate even better performance, but at this point, so hopefully that's a conservative estimate, but time will tell, but we're holding at that for an estimate. Similarly, state revenue sharing is projected to grow at 4% annually, and the underlying source of this revenue is sales tax, so again, growth may even exceed these projections. revenue source that has not been of good news is the communication services tax collection, and they're projected to remain flat in the future. The underlying communication services being taxed have seemed to reach a saturation point, with recent history showing declines of this revenue. So the reductions are decreasing, and hopefully we can at least hold flat in this revenue source. It's not a very major revenue source relative to the total general fund at $2 million, but an important one, and one that's not growing. And finally, for general fund revenue sources, we'll look at ambulance revenues, and they have a varied history and are therefore it is difficult to make reliable projections. Recent history, very recent history, shows significant increase in this revenue source, much of which may be attributable to success in billing and collection methods. So that's good positive news in that regard. We're still showing the projected revenue for 2018-19 to remain at the budgeted amount, which is similar to what we ended up collecting in this current year. Maybe we'll do better, maybe not. It depends on, again, collections and of course, the underlying activity of the ambulance service. We're looking at a conservative 2% annual increase factor for future years, but we should look for better performance than that, or at least look to achieve it by continuing to pursue collections, and also to ensure that we make timely adjustments to the rate structure. This is a major revenue source in the general fund, currently generating $17.5 million, and keeping up both with billing collections as well as the rate increases that may be necessary to keep up with inflation is important. And then one final point before we get to the general fund projection, there are a number of unfunded capital projects that are not included in the projection that we'll be looking at in the next slide. And it shows here that you have a more detailed list in your handout than the summary on this slide, but it shows that there's a number of projects in excess of $6 million that could be pursued in the upcoming year, and then between almost $2 to $4 million in the remaining years. So any projected amounts that you see, you would have to add those estimated millage rates increases to those years in order to fund those projects, or to forego pursuing those, or likewise look at other operating expenses that have to be held in abeyance to allow sufficient major capital projects. What has been included in the projection is some currently ongoing projects that the expenses are imminent in the coming year and the next year, and including the ERP system and upgrades at the elevators at the Judicial Center and the Public Defender Building expansion. Those have already commenced, and so completion of those projects is highly likely to, and therefore appropriately included in the projections. So on the following slide is a projection of the general fund. We're tracking very closely in the top half of that slide, you see, with revenues and expenditures, although in the very near term, the general fund, it does show opportunities for growth in the longer term, but this is primarily due to, a favorable estimate of growth in taxable property values. Assuming the millage rates held at the current level, there may be a near-term reduction in fund balance that could fall below the fund balance policy threshold of 20% of expenditures. So in the upcoming year and the year after that, it's showing still a dip in the fund balance, with a status quo approach. And this is primarily due to the assumed personal services increases for funding of the sheriff's pay plan. There's still one more year in the sheriff's pay plan that I've included an estimate of the cost for that in this projection, as well as the terms of the fire rescue collective bargaining agreement. So either a millage rate increase or constraint of other expenditures may be necessary to maintain an adequate level of reserves and fund balance. Moving on, in the fine and forfeiture fund, we show a similar countywide property tax increases projected to be experienced in the fine and forfeiture fund. And on the following slide, you can see that we're projected to maintain the fund balance in the fine and forfeiture fund and see some growth that is, commensurate with the total level of expenditures in the fund. So it's not a growth in fund balance that's in excess of what we need. It's keeping up with the amount that we need on hand relative to the total budget. And the reason this is able to be done in this fund is that the property taxes are a dominant revenue source in this fund, and with the property taxes expected to do 5 to 6% increases per year, it does allow for to keep up with a higher level of expenditures. Firstly, when we look back at the general fund and we saw the issues with trying to keep up with fund balance, it is because of other revenue sources like sales tax and ambulance fees that don't keep up with the same level of growth, projected growth as property taxes. For the MS2 for law enforcement, again, we're using the same growth factors. It's a non-county-wide fund, but it is the vast majority of the county, so the property tax increases are assumed to be similar to that in countywide, and that's what's projected for the MS2 for law enforcement. And again, we see that the revenues are projected to do a little better than expenditures in the upcoming years, and so again, it allows for growth in the fund balance to keep pace with the growth of the total expenditures annually in that fund. Finally, we'll look at the two revenue sources of the fire rescue fund and also the projection for that. And bear in mind, it is a projection. It's based on assumptions that don't have to come true, but right now it's a cautionary tale. The Fire Rescue and EMS Fund is a combination of two major revenue sources. The lesser of these two is a property tax. Property tax increases similar to the countywide levels are projected to be experienced in this fund, and that should help in providing funding in this for this service. However, it's not the major revenue source in this fund. The major revenue source for this fund is the Fire Rescue Special Assessment. Recent increases in this special assessment have not kept up with expenditure levels. In particular, significant expenditure increases have resulted and will continue in the near future as a consequence of the salary terms of the Fire Rescue Collective Bargaining Agreement. And a second cause is the level of overtime expenditures that have exceeded planned levels for several years and continue to do so presently. A portion of the projected assessment increase could be averted if a reduction in the estimated level of overtime expenditures can be demonstrated through a reduction in actual overtime expenditures in the near future. I guess the short way to say that is seeing is believing, so we're going to need to see a reduction in overtime expenditures. There's hope for this, as I understand it, there's less vacancies due to the collective bargaining agreement bringing salary levels closer to a market level. But on the assumption that the collective bargaining agreement goes into place with the original estimates of how it's going to impact future years, as well as the overtime still remaining where it is now until we can see a reduction, it does show a significant increase in the assessment rate of up to $240 as the base rate. And you can see on the I'm sorry, we should have been looking at that slide while we discussed it. This slide shows the current assessment generating approximately $30 million and needing to go closer to generating $37 million. On the final slide is the Fire Rescue and EMS Fund, and you can see the expenditures have been exceeding, in recent history, expenditures exceeding revenues and the resulting reduction in fund balance. So it will be necessary to immediately reverse this trend in the upcoming budget. And so you can see that, you know, an increase in the assessment rate for 2019-20 is where the revenue line will cross the expenditure line and begin to restore fund balance and provide for growth in that fund. And that concludes the presentation. If there are any questions or board discussion?
To the board for any comments, any questions of Mr. Tomich? Mr. Tomich, on the fire rescue and EMS special assessment, again, you're projecting that we're gonna have to impact that fee in 1920.
Yes, this
From-
upcoming budget.
Okay, okay, and I have one more question. On our unfunded, not included in the projected expenditures, and this is on page 6 for us to look at, I'm just kind of taking a look to see, you know, is this something that we need to look at, board, and just make sure that it aligns with the priorities that we just said that are our priorities?
Commissioner,
Mr.
this is based on information that we entered into the budget software last year. And we do this on an annual basis. I need to go through those projects in detail with the involved department, and we will update our 5-year plan, and we will be bringing back recommendations to you.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tomich, thank you for your concise report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Bryant, before you leave, Mr. Tomich.
Michael, I have a real quick question. Can you refresh my memory on how much revenue we're bringing in each year with the sales tax?
Offhand, I believe it's like in excess of $30 million.
I thought.
Well in excess, probably closer approaching 40 at this point. It's considerably more than what was originally projected, and it's been exceeding the even the annual state estimates.
Okay.
And there's a little.
Go ahead.
There's a difference between what we experience in the 1-cent sales tax collection increases and then what we experience in the half-cent sales tax collections, because there are formulas that kind of divvy up between the counties how much of the state shared sales tax we get, but the 1-cent sales tax that is voted is strictly those revenues that are collected within Marion County. And so we've actually been experiencing better growth locally than.
All right, so I'm just thinking outside of the box here a little bit.
Good.
You know, as far as how we're going to fund some of our services into the future that are going to continue, there's going to continue to be a greater need for those services as our population grows. Could we, is there any way to consider having a sales tax to offset a fire assessment?
Only to the extent that it would be for infrastructure. There's no operating income, sales tax
Unless they
available to the board.
change.
Unless it changes, yeah, anything could change, but currently, no. But it does, cover equipment needs, which is no small part of what we're up against. Unfortunately, these projections are very minimal on equipment because those are, taken care of. So,
Right.
what could happen to us in the 5 years out, I probably should say, is that it only gets more challenging if the sales tax is not renewed for
No,
public
and
safety purposes.
thank you for reminding me of that. So, I think that having something like that said, so we've lobbied the last several years, the state legislature, to allow us to use some sales tax funding to offset operational. So if we were ever to be successful with that, could we then use it to offset some of these increasing charges in an assessment, or would it just be GR? And you might not know the answer to that question right now. I understand you might need some time to look into that, but it's just a thought for looking into the future and planning into the future with what we're gonna do with,
I mean, it would depend how the law is written, but there are already laws in place that do allow, using portions of sales tax revenue for non-countywide purposes. So given all the assumptions there, that'd probably be another one that you could throw on there, that the such legislation, may well include using it for non-countywide purposes.
thanks.
Well, when we're lobbying, I think that's an important piece that we would want to add for non-countywide services. Or, excuse me, give us the language that we need to make sure that we're able to use it for countywide purposes.
Right. Well, there is a similar formula in the half-cent sales tax that does allow portions of it to be used. I mean, it's all spoken for now in our general fund, so it doesn't help to take it from there, but I would say that is actually a current opportunity. I don't know that it's.
I think we're simply asking for them to change the language from just capital to capital and a
Operational.
percentage of operation.
Right.
Right, but also the discussion of non-countywide purposes.
Sure.
Yes.
This might be a
Commissioner
question
Cole?
to everybody. When do we start looking at rewriting or preparing for this next, for it to be on the ballot? Because I know
We've
there's
gotta
got,
start that now.
because I
The
know
next
there's,
presentation.
Yeah.
will-
all right. all
You're,
right.
great segue.
So,
Thank you. Okay, I think we're good.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Our county administrator is going to take it from here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The next presentation is, I would like to give you an update on the sales surtax. Since its inception in 2016-17. Okay, I gave you a quick update on the major projects that we have accomplished so far in the past 2 years, and mostly equipment has been a huge help in the operation of fire rescue and the sheriff's office. The major one purchase was for the sheriff's helicopter, which I think it was of a great help to the operation of the sheriff. And so far, we have accomplished 32 miles of major county roads, mostly rehabilitation type projects. Going forward, we still have $140 million allocated for road projects and public safety facilities and equipment. The major road projects related to this funding source would be the 49th Street interchange. And the major facility project would be the evidence building for the sheriff's office. Those two projects are in design at this point, and the evidence building hopefully will be under construction next year. At the next board meeting on February 5th, I will be presenting to you a revised 5-year schedule. We have made some adjustment to show exactly what was spent in 17-18, and some adjustment to the projects in 18-19, the year we are in, and what's still projected for the next 2 years. With that done, if you look into the future, we still have several major road projects that they are not funded. And when I talk about road projects, it's not subdivision roads or minor type roads that we have in the county. It's mostly roads on our major network throughout the county. Fire and law enforcement equipment, we continue to replace equipment. There will still be need to replace those equipment beyond the 5-year plan that we have in place now. Looking also things we are facing in the future, and those are only just an example of few projects that surfaced lately and we have been talking about. The Marion County Jail, the sheriff is doing an evaluation of the entire jail building and operation, and we will see a report from him very soon. I think you're gonna need to invest some capital investment in that facility to stay ahead of the curve. Also, we have been talking about a special need emergency shelter. There's a lot of discussion going between administration and the emergency management team. If we embark on a project like this, how can that be used for just more than being an emergency shelter that is activated only during a storm? I think it could be combined with several different operations in one location, including, for example, a fire training facility, which we have been talking about, similar to what we visited in, what we looked at in Charlotte County. And also, we have been having a lot of discussion about animal services, the operation of that department, and the need for some expansion and improvement for that facility. I think those three operations probably can be co-located in one place and keep the square footage that is on the roof used all year round, and then be available in case we have an emergency.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Monier, and just because I had a conversation last week, but I think when we're talking about a special needs shelter, we also need to include DOH in that.
Yes.
I think there's some opportunities over there, especially since they're the ones that are in charge of overseeing it when we have to open them.
I agree, Commissioner. And the first meeting I had with emergency management, Mark was involved in that discussion, and he will continue to be. I believe we are working on a field trip to go visit the existing facility down in
I think it's
Polk County.
Have you had a conversation with Mark about that?
The field trip? Not yet.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that you need to have some conversations with him, because I think there are probably some opportunities with the state, because there are some updates that need to be done to that facility that they're in. So that could be a cooperative effort.
Okay.
I thought that they were able to do the special needs shelter at the health department.
Not really, they're not, because the way that
but not.
building is built, it's not conducive to what they need. And so in a conversation that I had with him last week,
Right, but he could get it to like 30 or under,
I don't know.
something like that.
Yeah, 20 to 30 is what you told
But
me.
it wouldn't be the same capacity. It wouldn't be enough capacity. I mean, it would have to be a
Right.
very small amount of people. I'm just saying that you need to include him in these conversations, because I do believe that there are some opportunities for us to work collectively with the state on the special needs shelter portion of it,
Okay.
especially with their needs over there at that building. And it would make sense, if we were to move forward with something like that, that we would have that right there, as their people are charged with overseeing that facility running.
Okay. Will do.
And what's the issue with the schools?
Well,
The problem with the schools
look what you dealt with
is
last time.
the same thing that we dealt
Yeah,
with
but we
last
wouldn't deal
time.
with it the same way this time.
It doesn't matter. The biggest problem is depending on who's in charge of the schools, if they decide that they want their school, that they're gonna have school start on Thursday, then we've got a special needs shelter that we've got to figure out what we're gonna do with. That was one of the biggest
I
problems.
don't think they can do that.
They
Oh,
did.
they
All
did
due
it.
respect, no, they can't.
They did it,
They,
whether they can
I
or
don't think they
can't.
can legally kick you out if those people have not been placed. That's why Mark was looking at, hey, if you have like 30 people left, we can move them to a specific location. But they can't force those people out. They are obligated under state law
I-
to hold those shelters.
I
And the
hear what you're
emergency management
saying.
director makes that decision.
Well, unfortunately, it
And the
didn't
governor.
work out that way last time.
No, I know, but I mean, I don't think that would happen again.
No,
Commissioner.
I agree, but I also think that if we have an
Why would we
opportunity
build
to
a shelter like
partner
that?
with the state, if the state's willing to help fund something like that, we need to, especially because they need, that facility over there is antiquated. It's not serving the same purposes that it served when it was built. Great location for what they need, but the needs have changed because Department of Health has changed the way that they do business.
understand that.
So I'm just saying there's possibly some opportunities to work together with the state, so that if they were to decide that they needed to build a new facility over there, they could include that as part of it. And I think that's something that we need to look into if we're having these conversations.
We'll do before we
Before
come
we get
back to
too
you
far
with
down the
any-
road on that.
Yes.
Okay, and also, it's not listed here, but we have been talking and in terms of infrastructure. And springs protection and aquifer protection, you may want to think in the future, if we continue with the sales tax, to include those type of projects into our funding scheme. I gave you some additional information on the dates Commissioner Gold was asking about. In 2020, if this board decide to go back and renew the sales tax, we have to do a referendum again, and those are the dates that we need to be looking at and the deadline. Last time we did this, the board engaged the business community. They put a committee together and they looked at the need for this revenue source and what impact it will have on the community, on our economy and not. If you want to bring this back to the public, I would recommend that early on we will engage the business community and let them look at it again this year.
And there is a large contingency of the business community and then other communities that want to be involved in it. And if we're looking for election, I think for those of you who weren't here the last time we did it during the presidential preference primary because we wanted to, for budgeting purposes, because we knew we'd be going into budgeting and we wanted to know what we were going to be looking at.
So at this point, are you looking for direction?
I'm looking for some directions, yes.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do we need it in 2020, based on the overages and production?
Even with the overages, and you are going to see some good sizable amount of money in our fund balance, but all that money is allocated for specific projects. And we can't go forward with those, even the projects. I mean, when you talk about road infrastructure, you're talking 5, 6, maybe 10 years before you can get the project completed. So you're gonna have some money sitting in there. But going long term, you still have several expansion road projects that they are not funded. And you still have just the example of the items I just listed. And equipment for public safety, I think you're gonna be replacing those equipment on a regular basis. Now, probably after 10
It really
years.
shouldn't. I mean, somewhere in there should be a little bit of a.
It should slow down.
It should slow down because of the amount we had to buy in the beginning.
It should slow down.
Literally, replacement can't be as high as what we bought
Right.
the first couple
When
of
we're
years.
first getting off.
Well, the first year was like 60 some odd
Yeah.
patrol cars or something. I don't know. It's
It's up
crazy.
to what.
The jail alone, if we have to make some
Sure.
improvement to that structure, it's gonna be very costly.
Well, I think the jail and the courthouse can be added to those things, the build out of the fourth floor and some of those other things that we have had on the 5-year CIP for a while. We can probably get that or look to fund that.
See where that.
And that will
falls.
take pressure off the sales, of the
The
General
general
fund.
fund.
I agree.
When do we get into the discussions about the basics of it, once we figure out when we're doing it? Like
Give me,
what the
give me
sunset
directions.
should be?
I think
Yeah,
we
I'm going to
will,
be in favor of the presidential primary again because I think that gives you enough time to know if it passes or fails, so that you have enough time to make those decisions. And we go into workshops in the summer,
Yeah,
and so obviously having that decision based on funding, you would need to know that before you went into September.
Yeah.
I mean, in my thought, that's why we did it the first time. I don't see the rationale, quite frankly, changing based on that.
And you'd sunset the same as we did last time too, in my opinion.
Yeah, 4
The
years.
4 years.
Why?
Yeah.
Why 4 years?
Why?
Yeah, why 4 years?
Well, because
Why-
I think that it's. I mean, what I was going to suggest anyway, Commissioner, was that we test or I don't think test is the wrong word, but we survey our community based on how they felt about the current sales tax, whether they felt like it's achieved the goals that we set forth and all of those things. That we get information back, and that we test that question. Quite frankly, whether people would be in favor of a 4-year, a 2-year, a 6-year. There are some communities that have passed a 10-year, depending on the need for capital. I think you need to justify that very significantly if you go to 10 years. And in my talking to folks, that's anecdotally though, that's not a real good survey. It's not scientific. People don't want you to go long-term on those.
Right.
They want them to sunset. They want to see that you've done what you said you were going to do, and then maybe they'd be willing to give you another chance.
2 to 4.
We'll find that out.
That was part of the secret to our success last time, was we had a specific target as far as what we had projected that it would bring in, what we projected the projects that we needed to do, would cost and the capital that we needed to buy. And we also knew, based on the only other referendum that had passed, which was the one for the courthouse, we knew that that was a key component, was being very specific about what we were going to be using the money for. Excuse me, I think at this point in time, it would kind of be rather hard unless we were able to get that legislation changed that we wanted to get changed. But with legislation being the way that it is, I think it would be very difficult to be able to project out 10 years
Right.
the projects that we would use, the kind of money that that sales
think you
tax
could get open-ended
revenue
past.
creates, brings in. So, I
I say
mean,
2 to 4.
in order to keep the trust of the public,
Yeah.
they've
That's-
got to be able to see what the
That's
trans-
something that we might want to do a survey on. I mean, definitely do that. So we figured we're doing it, and I mean, Madam Chair, I'm just trying to get this all lined up for questions I have. So we've kind of come to a consensus, we're going to do it in presidential primary. I do know that the sheriff and the previous Sheriff Gainey had some questions about the constitutional language that was in it. That's something that I think we need to look at too, that they both brought
Didn't
up.
hear those issues, so what are they?
I didn't hear them either.
I don't know if Jerry Holland can identify that or not, or if you're ready to, some of the language that was used in it, the way the property went
Well,
through
how-
the county.
I was
I
gonna say,
think
we
the-
probably.
I think the language you are referring to, it was about the board have the full responsibility of the sales tax and allocating.
Absolutely.
the-
Yeah,
the
I'm not
department.
willing
Why wouldn't
to
you wanna
change
do
that.
Commissioner
the
Gold?
They had some constitutional, that they said they had a constitutional.
Why didn't they
area.
press us on it?
So,
They did,
Well, they didn't win.
but
We
it
pressed
didn't.
back.
I mean,
Yeah.
they
I mean,
did,
they
but
don't have any justification in that. The Board of County
it's just something I think we
Commissioners
need to have a discussion on with the sheriff to make sure that we're all on the same page. If he's got some areas of concern, I think it's an area that we probably need to talk to him and make sure that it's all worked out beforehand.
But she'll
So
have.
either way, whatever the board's gonna do, but I think it's a discussion the sheriff needs to
Well, I
have
think
with
we've
us,
proven that it works
so.
and
Yeah,
that we
he'll-
have a
he'll have to put
responsibility to the
his-
people, so,
He'll have to put his project list together as well.
yes.
So I think
But
that's
I
a
don't
good
think we would change who the
opportunity.
purchasing agent would be. I think the Board of County Commissioners would want to keep the purchasing through the Marion County Commission, since we are responsible for those items.
That does give us definitely the
Right, we have to answer for it.
transparency for that.
I agree, I just remember Sheriff Gainey and myself had a very,
And our clerk
deta-
agrees,
detailed
it has to go through us.
okay. Yeah, Sheriff
you,
Gainey had a
Clerk.
very detailed discussion with me that didn't come to a agreeable end, that it had to go through them, but
I
that's what I
agree.
just say.
And I don't think that
We
funding
just
can
have a
go anywhere else,
discussion
can
if
it?
there's anybody there.
Okay,
That funding can't be directed somewhere else, can it?
so Mr. Ellsperman, if you're gonna talk to us,
Sorry.
if you don't mind coming forward.
I mean, I appreciate his opinion.
Right.
No.
I think that's how he's the clerk.
It's been found in the processes that all funding has to go to Board of County Commissioners, and then you allocate it accordingly as you do every year.
I'm fine with that. I just know the sheriff had some differences, and if maybe he can bring that to us at a meeting at one point, or individually on one-on-ones.
I think
later.
based on this discussion, I take it that you are leaning toward proceeding with
The
renewing the
pres-
sales tax,
With the
you wanna do it-
presidential preference.
the presidential election.
Get the
Primary.
business community.
I would like, I mean, that discussion's still going on. Every time I meet with the sheriff,
Okay.
he brings this up. I think between the chairman, myself, and the clerk, we need to sit down with him and have that discussion, and the county attorney, and the explanation, where he's coming from with his concerns, and what is the board positions and how it's justified.
Okay.
We need to get this resolved if there are any issues before we start going out to the public with this.
Absolutely.
And that's all I was
Well, it
bringing
must
up.
be a unified front.
And then the last question I had on, is there any room anywhere in there to fund some of our other capital projects that we might, or is it pretty well? And I'm asking the board and everybody, is there anywhere that we might be able to use towards some of our other large projects that we have coming up?
Like
or
what?
plans, either being with the, I saw that the Animal Center was on there. Does that fall under public safety?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so, yes.
Okay. What about any of the,
You'd have to outline all those projects. I
I
think
was
we're gonna have,
gonna
I think
say,
we're gonna have to
yeah,
have a
but-
project list
Right.
of everybody's, wants, just like we did last time, and then we'll drill down.
I will caution you, though,
But be careful.
you have to keep it very pointed and very
For
specific.
the public to understand what,
You
Yeah.
can't.
you gotta get what the public wants, so it doesn't look, so it's
Yeah,
transparent.
if you do if you're too diverse on that list as to what departments it's going to, then then they start asking the question, okay, is this really an essential need, and is this really something we need to do?
That's why I'm bringing it up now, because now's the time kind of to bring it up to find out if there is anything else, so at the last minute, we're not trying to say, let's add this, or let's not add it, or people want it, so that's why I'm bringing the issues up now.
The one question, based on what we said, if in this direction, I'm gonna need to have departments start working on that long-term plan, the additional 4-year plan. And if you are open for the infrastructure to include some septic to sewer projects, I need to know that, because if you're not, I wouldn't.
I think you're gonna
If
have
you
a
are
hard
leaning
time
that
selling
direction,
that.
I need to bring you some projects.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think that you're gonna have a hard time selling that to those folks that's not going to be relevant to.
Okay.
And I think it could hurt our cause. That's,
Yeah, let's
That's
just
why we just
open
need
it
to
up
study
and
it
see what the
beforehand.
I think
public's
we need to try to stick as hard
appetite
as
is.
we can to roads and
Right.
roads,
Safety.
fundamental stuff, courthouse, jail, and public safety.
Right.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I would try to, let's lock it in there.
Okay.
And then if there's,
the only.
you can put in there a broad enough project for septic to sewer, then I'd be interested at least looking at it, but I don't know if there's one that exists. So I'm not aware of one that's broad enough that people aren't gonna come back to us and say, well, listen, you got a utility, bond it, you got ratepayers, I mean, you know, that's not appropriate, Commissioner. I mean, so we just need to make sure
Okay.
that that's funded the right way. I mean, if we're maybe even talking about public safety or essential housing, you know, those to me are going to be the infrastructure projects that I think are gonna be better funded through the sales tax.
And I think that anything that you might want to consider that might have anything to do with that, the only way that I see the public embracing that type of a project would be if it were something that would benefit, say, Silver Springs. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That type of project. But to put in projects that are going to benefit different residential areas for things that we know we need to do, I think that the public would say no
I think
to
there are
that.
plenty of subdivisions in our community that are, you know, whether they're gated or not, they already have their essential services set up. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't see them saying, oh, yeah, well, I want to fund somebody else's subdivision.
Right.
I think that's what you get into. That's why we didn't do subdivision roads, right? We don't do them because they're not serving the entire community.
Great discussion.
And I think that's why
Next,
we had the business community support, is because it was broad, it was essential, and it was for the entire community.
Right.
I think
That
that's
was
the
my
way we
next
need to-
question. I think I'll reach out to the business community
please
and
do.
give them, we start getting engaged, we have some meetings, okay?
And let me just follow up on that, and it's not that I don't think anybody up here doesn't support those projects, because we do, but we also know through trial and error what we've seen the public support in the past and what they supported this time.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't work.
Agree. Thank
We
you.
And I think
definitely want to
between,
make sure.
so is the, I mean, obviously, we kind of got the guidance, but are you gonna work with the chair to
Yes.
start testing language, to
Exactly.
start on some of those things, make sure we get, I mean, I think we need to get customer surveys back, some polling back, you know, find out
I
what
think
people
we'll
think,
let the
you
business
know.
community do that.
Right,
Well,
we'll
we can work with the
engage
business
them.
community, but I just want to make sure our chairman
Yes.
was involved in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, as we go through this process, we as a board cannot go out there and advocate. All we can do
Educate.
is educate.
Right.
Right.
One other suggestion too, since we are going to use the businesses or the business community to help us with this, maybe involve our PIO office also to help with that. Sure.
For the education
Yep,
side.
education also when it comes to the polling and some of the consensus that are out there to make sure, just to help them with it too, so we're not dropping it all on them.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
With that said, the next presentation is with Cheryl Amy about essential housing.
Cheryl Martin.
Martin.
Oh, Cheryl, I'm sorry, Cheryl.
Our old
okay.
Cheryl. Our other Cheryl.
And thank you, Mr. Boynes,
Thank
for
you.
what you brought forward to us to make that decision on. So, okay. Ms. Martin.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Martin, Community Services Director. As you may recall, on December 5th, we had an essential housing workshop with the board, and I'm here today to provide you with some examples based on the board's direction of types of projects that we can focus on for the next 5 years to be placed in our 5-year consolidated plan. This map displayed is based on the 2010 census data, and as you know, the 2020 census data will be conducted, which will update this map. The areas in yellow are identified income census tracts, and the area shaded in gray is the actual CRA. I do want to note to you that there is a small section of the CRA that is within a low-income census tract.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last sentence, Cheryl?
In the CRA area, if you look, I don't know how to use the pointer.
I can see it.
There's a small little triangle that's, oh, there we go, thank you. Right here.
Okay.
See, that's in a low-income census tract.
Okay, thank you.
So as a part of the 5-year consolidated plan process, the needs identified by Marion County residents and local service providers are to improve and expand public infrastructure, increase essential housing, which will hopefully assist with reducing homelessness. And based on the 3 needs identified, Community Services has established 3 goals to be placed in our 5-year consolidated plan. The first goal is neighborhood revitalization, which includes acquisition of property for housing developments, installation of infrastructure, demolition of blighted properties, and environmental abatement as needed. The number 2 goal is scattered site housing program, which would include construction and or reconstruction of rental properties and some single family owner occupied housing, preservation of existing housing, and outreach to include case management, financial sustainability, and wraparound services to help people become housed or stay housed. The number 3 goal is homeowner services, which we already offer now, to include the down payment assistance program and renovations to existing housing. Again, based on the last workshop, the board asked to have Community Services review the CRA in Silver Springs for potential projects to be funded. This map identifies the entire CRA with 3 locations for examples. Example 1 and 2, as I mentioned before, reside in a low-income census tract. Example 3 does not. Here's an aerial view of the first and second example outlined in pink and purple, which would include property acquisition for essential housing. Here are photos of example 1, which includes mostly hotel properties. Example 2 includes vacant land on RV park and a few single family residences. Moving on to example 3 of the CRA, which again does not lie in a low-income census tract, which would involve approval from HUD after an income survey of the area is obtained. However, this example includes infrastructure improvement and rental development. The idea is to provide housing options for those who may be residing in surrounding hotels and improve the existing housing. This map provided to me from utilities displays the existing water infrastructure. The cost to improve the water infrastructure is approximately $5.2 million. In order for us to fund this project, it would be necessary for us to partner with other grant opportunities. Here are some examples of properties that reside in example 3. And last but not least, as part of example 3, I included development of surplus property outside of the CRA. This particular property is within the city of Ocala that the county owns that we could use to develop essential housing. It already includes infrastructure and infrastructure and transportation are in place for this property. It would ideally be for affordable rental. This parcel would be an ideal project for a Florida Housing Finance Corp tax credit project.
And Cheryl, how many acres is that?
7.5.
Also, just as in my one-on-one, I would caution you, just make sure that you do a very high-quality job, because we all know of the affordable housing that brings in, can actually attract, if done wrong, attracts crime, and if it's done right, it actually repels crime. So I would advise use the best management practices in that area.
Well, we'd be talking about we'd be looking at age restricted there as well, correct?
So we can't, yes, we can prioritize. We wouldn't necessarily be able to have an age restriction, but we certainly could prioritize and ensure that the aesthetics of the apartment or rentals are conducive to the surrounding areas. So when I did speak with the city of Ocala, they would like to see a conceptual plan or rendering prior to rezoning to make sure that we were conforming.
So we can't do a senior living facility?
So again, the benefit has to be the benefit low to mod individuals. So having a strong property management company, and again, prioritizing who lives there and having strong leases in place.
So when you say prioritizing, what does that really mean?
It means, again, going back to the fair housing, we can't limit who we, as far as age restriction, but we can prioritize.
Okay, so I'm gonna, isn't there a facility over off of 27th Avenue and 17th Street Extension?
Magnolia.
That is seniors only, low-income seniors?
Yes.
Okay, so why can't we do that?
I will research that for you.
Okay, yeah, because I think that was what we had really talked about, because we know that there is really a need for that in our...
And thinking back and with some of the applications and certifications that have come place from some other nonprofit providers, it just depends on the request for application by the state. So there are some times where our requests for applications are for senior type housing. So it will depend on funding availability, but we can certainly look in that.
And I'm just, remembering this, I'm Commissioner Stone, I think you were at that Senior Tsunami Summit. And, one of the issues that they have is that there are not a lot of facilities that are truly ADA compliant when it comes to elevators and things like that. So, I think that is a definite need in our community, and we need to look into that.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, and I would like to see some preferential preference given to how can we include some permanent solution housing as well in there.
Okay.
I think our PPI study is coming out next week, and based on the scan of that, the recommendation is that we start to get some essential housing for permanent solutions.
Correct.
For some of these.
I agree. Any development that we fund moving forward, especially through our grant process, I believe should have a component of that in order for us to reach some of those goals identified in that study coming forward.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to summarize, here are the 3 anticipated costs of the examples shared. All 3, again, are viable options with slightly different cost and timelines. The average total cost is approximately $20,400,000 over a 5-year time period. And again, it's just based on existing projects already in place and the 3 options provided today. In conclusion, Again, whether we decide to focus on a majority of these efforts within the locations shared, based on the citizen comments received, the 4 activities recommended to place in the Community Services 5-year consolidated plan would be to purchase properties for development of essential housing, hire an outreach, quote-unquote, case manager to work with local law enforcement to move people out of unstable housing to stable housing, such as hotels with the coordination of the COC. Number 3 would be to improve and expand current infrastructure, which will assist with the development of number 4, to construct housing with a priority of affordable rental.
Okay, gotcha.
And with that, are there any questions, or would you like me to go over anything else?
Do we have any additional questions here? So, well, and I do think essential housing is going to fit into that infrastructure as a priority. So we would want to see something going forward as we continue to look at this. Mr. Boynes, do you need any additional instruction from the board or direction?
No, that's good. And the discussion we had when we had the CRA presentation, I think gave us a lot of directions, and we keep moving on that same.
Okay, great.
Is just as a consensus or direction, is there a priority over any one of these 3 examples, or is 3?
Okay. I think you got it. That would be my preference as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore, if you failed to see 3 fingers went up.
Yeah, well,
For the record, 3.
I can see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. And Commissioners, Commissioner Zalek is not going to be able to return with us this afternoon. So, yeah, everything is good. Okay. All right.
Next is fire rescue.
I'm sorry, I'll let you invite him up. Hello, Chief Banta.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. James Banta, Fire Chief, Marion County Fire Rescue. Following last week's master plan presentation, I wanted to bring forward a few immediate needs for fire rescue and then discuss a few needs for the 1920 budget. So for the current fiscal year, we're going to propose reclassifying 1 captain to division chief position. This position resides in our logistics division, and we've identified some efficiencies that can be gained through this process. And I feel that with the amount of money that goes through this department, it's very important that it's overseen by a senior level officer versus a captain.
I don't think we can support that.
I'm sorry. Second would be the completion of a 5-year strategic plan. That's something I want to start working on immediately. I think it's extremely important that we start providing a roadmap for how we're going to meet some of the goals in our master plan. And then, as we spoke of in the master plan presentation, a good poll of the community on how they see fire rescue and what they expect to see out of fire rescue. I think that was definitely a failure of the master plan to get a good cross section of the citizens of our community and see what they actually feel about our services that we provide. My strategic planning priorities for the 1920 budget year would be to add 2 units for interfacility services. We're still working out logistically and operationally how that would work, and I believe that our staff will work through that. We'd also like to add 2 additional units for 911 emergency load, and I'm speaking strictly ambulances at this point, fire rescue ambulances. I'd like to reorganize our middle management within our department and then focus on automatic aid with the city of Ocala and the villages and Lake Sumter County. I think focusing on all that will help alleviate, if we can work out good automatic aid agreements, that'll alleviate a lot of the workload on employees and units that are in those areas.
Okay. I'll bring it back to the board.
quick
Comments? Yes, Commissioner Moore?
I know with like ambulances, we have a definite shortage. You need more than 2 for the 911 load, or is that, I would assume 2 is your bare minimum you need. You probably need more than that, correct?
So I'm asking for 4.
Right,
The
I
ma-
get the 2 inter-facility, but I know from hearing back from some of our people that, or whatever, that there's times that we're kind of short.
Sure, I understand. So the 2 interfacility, while they would be doing interfacility, they would also, doing that workload would decrease some of the collateral workload on the other units. And they would still be available for 911 calls, high priority type 911 calls. So just because they're dedicated to that service doesn't mean that if there's a high priority call and they're closest to it, that they're not going to handle it.
As we discussed during the master plan presentation, there is a need for 7 units. And the recommendation was from the consultant that we start adding 2 units at a time and evaluate the impact and keep moving forward.
But we had that a couple years ago, where they said 2 units at a time back when Chief
That
Nevels
was our
here.
discussion, internal.
Well, and I think you have to realize, Commissioner, that, and I think Chief Bant has brought this up on several occasions. I mean, if he were to put 6 units out there right now, the problem is one of the problems that we face is staffing all of those at one time. And so this is this is the recommendation that he has.
I'm just making sure we're giving him what he needs.
Sure. Do we need more units on the road right now? Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I put another unit on the road, it's going every hour that unit's on the road will be overtime. And as Mr. Thomas already pointed out, we're still managing overtime. We are seeing, and when we look at period 3, we are seeing a slight decrease in overtime. You also have to remember, we also raise salaries, so those overtime numbers are going to be increased as compared to last year because we raised the salaries in those numbers. So we are starting to see a decrease in that, and I believe that that'll continue to trend that way. But we're watching it. We're watching for other reasons why some of those other overtime numbers could be so high. It's not just vacancies, and we've identified that. If we look back several years in the past, we reduced positions in the department, but we also raised salaries when we did that. But we didn't reduce units, and and that impacted our relief factor and our ability to cover sick and vacation and that type of thing. So while it was a really good thing when we did it, we're having to catch up from those impacts now.
But I think that we discussed at the time that we did that when you were fully staffed and you needed to add positions, that we would be willing to fund
Sure.
more positions.
And I don't disagree with the decision. It was the right decision at the time, but it does have impacts down the road, and we're seeing some of those impacts, and that's what we're working through to rectify.
So are you rectifying that by adding the units, adding positions as well? Because you're going to need positions to staff those units, correct?
Right. When we add positions, if we add a unit, if it takes 6 people to operate that unit, you really have to hire 7 to cover the sick and vacation.
Right.
So, and we're also going to be studying that relief factor to see if it's where it truly needs to be, or do we need to increase that, or do we need to decrease that? Currently, with 450, give or take a few positions, I need about 60 people just to cover sick, vacation, and workers' comp, and that type of thing. And that number is very lean right now.
So, Chief, moving forward with your plan, funding, what are you looking at as far as funding to cover the additional units?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Moving forward with your plan that
Yes,
you
ma'am.
presented, I'm sure you're in the planning process of funding those additional units as well. Can you give us an idea of what you're looking at as far as that's concerned?
Yes, ma'am. We'll be able to tell you what that's going to cost, and we're also engaged with the consultants for the update of a fire rescue assessment fee. So that's all going to go hand in hand for the 1920 budget.
Thank you.
So Chief Banta, we'll look to see some numbers from you the next time. But yes, Commissioner Gold?
Real quick on the poll, somebody very intelligent suggested if we could do that instead of hiring out, possibly use our utilities bills or something. I think I talked to the county administrator about that, or we might be able to do that in-house for the poll back for the what the consulting group lacked on their last statement they gave. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, the only problem I see with using like utility bills for that is a large demographic of a large portion of our utility bills covers one demographic.
Well, I was gonna get into too, that we could
Yeah.
do some other polling along with that. Anything's better than 18 out of 350,000 people.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
But just something that we might be able to save a little bit on that. And then I was gonna ask too about the aid agreement. It kind of be nice to see if we looked at Levy, Putnam, Volusia also, if it benefited us. I don't know if the benefit would be to Marion County to enter into the same agreements, because they might actually use us more than we would use them.
Sure. So we are actually looking at all the surrounding counties and looking at automatic versus mutual aid agreements with them.
automatic aid, I'm
Some of them, it won't make sense for an automatic aid agreement as it would with the city of Ocala or with the villages. But we are looking at that, and right now we're focusing on the city of Ocala. We have a lot of information going in and out between the departments, a lot of data collection and GIS mapping, and trying to really get a good picture of the impact of the city and the impact of the county and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, because I was just looking at the areas, like Commissioner Zowick was staying last week, they're kind of out there in their own. And if we had something with Putnam, maybe, if they have the manpower, I don't even know if they have it, so.
Sure. We have the ability to call other counties, and we do call other counties, just because we don't have an official agreement, an automatic agreement in hand. If, like for instance, if the unit out in 15, if they're busy and we're all busy and we need Putnam County, we can call Putnam County and they will respond, and vice versa.
Okay, that's all I have, Ben. Thank
Okay,
you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions with Chief Banda? Okay.
Thank you.
Chief Banda, thank you, and I think you've got your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bring it back to you, Mr.
Next
Borges.
is water resources update on the availability fee process and where we are at this time.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Angel Roussel, Assistant County Administrator for Public Works. And if I can get the screen, I put together a timeline of events that talks about what we went through last year. This is actually something that we've been working on for a couple of years, trying to find a good funding source to be able to tackle the BMAP, springs protection, septic to sewer. You've heard all these different terms. And I think we found a great alternative, the availability fee. We went through a workshop back in September of 2018. In October of 2018, I came back to the board with very good feedback that we got from a lot of the stakeholders. December of 2018, the board approved the notice of intent resolution. And where we are right now is actually working through the legal due diligence to establish the actual fee, to make sure that it's a defendable fee, that is something that if anybody challenges it, then we can go to court and be able to defend it. So we're going through that process right now with a timeline, with the expectation of bringing back to the board between March and April a series of ordinances to change our code of ordinances and to establish if you will, the rules that of how it will be assessed. In addition to that, then we have to do a fee resolution that establishes the actual fee that will be assessed. So all those things will happen in the March-April timeframe. If all those get approved through the public hearing process, then we're gonna work on between May and June to verify all the actual parcels to be able to certify them, and we have to do an initial assessment resolution with all the parcels that are going to get assessed. We're going to go ahead and send notices to those specific parcels and hold outreach meetings in communities that are mostly going to see those. So in Marion Oaks and Silver Spring Shores, there's the majority of those assessments. So we're going to go out there and hold those meetings to try to provide as much information as we can ahead of time, because then they're going to get the actual trim notice that would show it. If everything gets approved, they would get the trim notice with the actual assessment on it, and they're going to show up in the September public hearings for final approval of the fee resolution, of the fees. So with all that being said, I started discussions with the administrator too on how to set up from a budgeting standpoint, where we actually set up a separate budget within the utilities fund, but completely separate in the case that it fails. It is something that can easily be extracted from the budget process, not necessarily affecting it last moment in September.
Okay, so. Yeah.
I see her nodding her head. That's why I'm like looking there and.
Okay, so commissioners, comments?
Well, I've talked to different engineers from around the state, and then I've also talked to some commissioners from other counties, and the commissioners from other counties think this is the best thing since sliced bread, but of course, they haven't done the due diligence that you're going through. But some of the people that deal with water problems, they're saying they think this is pretty good cutting edge, getting in front of it, and it's a better way than some of the other ones where they've tried to do more like a MSTU type thing that I've heard that has had some challenges, and the ones I've talked to have thought that this was actually a great idea. So I'm good with going forward on the availability fee. Of course, when we get to whatever, since I built a water line, I've furnished water to 3 of the lots that actually we sold 2 of those lots. I only own still 1 lot on that line, but I would have to pay for what the water line up front plus the availability fee, so we'll have to work on that part. But as far as the availability fee and be able to put those water lines through and then later on fund septic to sewer with them, I think it's awesome.
Other comments?
Yeah.
I think we're well on our way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a very interesting discussion on subdivision roads.
Pressure.
I
He said
understand you
interesting.
may have some,
No, those were Commissioners Alex.
oh, okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tracy Straub, County Engineer for the record. If we can move to the next slide. Oh, I get to move it. Sorry. Which one am I clicking? Okay. So we're here to talk about subdivision roads. How am I clicking it?
Yeah, go ahead. While you get set up, well, yeah.
There's only 2 slides.
Oh, okay.
So.
Liquor.
Okay. So OCE currently maintains approximately 2,500 miles of paved road network. And of that paved road network, approximately 1,200 miles makes up your major road network, and another 1,300 are your county-maintained subdivision roads. So while we have concerns with keeping up with all of our road network, most of the 1,300 miles in front of the residents' homes continue to fall apart. These are falling further and further behind. And so again, that's your left side of your pie here, the subdivision local road network. Further to what OCE does, MSTU currently maintains about another 150 miles of paved roads through their processes. And just as a side note here, when we talk about 1,300 miles on the subdivision road network that's in the county's purview, there's about another 1,500 miles that has not been brought into the county system. Those are roads that are local roads. They are not maintained by another agency such as DOT, a municipality, the Forest Service. They could be public or private. They could have no dedications on them. They can be paved or unpaved, but they are public roads that are a potential liability for us as well. They're just not tracked in our databases because they're just out there. We only track the roads that we maintain and know of.
And again, how many roadways are that?
We estimate about 1,500 miles by just overlaying road maps onto our maintained road layer list that are public, taking out the privates, taking out the other municipalities, taking out the state roads.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big number. So we also estimate that it takes about $15 million annually to keep up with our road maintenance. We're only able to budget about $5 million on maintenance side of the house. Besides considering the severity of our road conditions, we prioritize our road resurfacing programs based on the classification of the road, which the number of vehicles on that road, the speed that folks travel that road. But with these priorities, these 1,200 miles that are our major road network that we're maintaining, the subdivision roads continue to fail. We're just not able to get to them in that prioritized list. OCE staff will respond as best as we can. We'll patch potholes. We'll patch potholes on top of potholes. You clearly see that in this picture. But in many cases, there is no asphalt left to patch on top of. There is raw lime rock exposed, and lime rock is eroding further. We are not delivering exceptional customer service. Our staff hears it from the citizens when they're out there. They get the brunt of it quite often. We try to explain, get your neighborhood organized, go seek an assessment. But they often don't get voted on. So I ask that you consider mandating assessments. We're not going to get further ahead. We're not going to reach these 1,200 miles, 1,300 miles of subdivision roads because of the 1,200 miles of major road network we keep up with. Without some funding, we're not going to deliver exceptional services, and that's what so many of our residents see.
Hard to chew on, but
it is.
I'm not prepared to tell you go do an assessment at this point in time. You know, we've talked about this
repeatedly
a lot, and you know, unfortunately, some of these subdivisions, the assessments just don't make sense for what you're looking at as far as the assessment matching up with what the value that it's going to bring to the subdivision. I mean, that's one of the things that we struggle with, and actually the people that live in these subdivisions being able to pay those assessments because of how costly they are. This is, yeah.
And that's where we talk about.
That's where we struggle.
Yeah. Do you offset? How do you offset them? But we don't have enough money. We're not able to put enough money out there on the major road network to offer offsets on the lesser road networks. We have to look at the holistic picture, possibly along with what you do with the sales tax. As the
Tracy, tell me, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this because we've talked about it so many times. Have we ever had a conversation with any of the contractors about a fixed price to, you know what I mean? Because we've probably got enough work to keep somebody busy
year round.
Yeah.
You know, ma'am, I don't know if there has been. That would have probably have happened through our assessment program at some time in the past, but I've not heard of a fixed price
We
kind
have
of doing
not discussed. We have not approached it in that manner.
a bid with a guaranteed number of miles.
Right, but the problem I think that we would run into with that is that some are going to be easier than others, some are going to require more work than others, so it would probably be an extremely difficult thing for them to do unless we had a tier, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that would bring down the cost enough to be able to justify mandating assessments. So I know that you're going to have a lunch with road builders, correct?
We have been asked to go back into partnering meetings, yes, ma'am. Yep.
I think that maybe why don't you have a discussion with them and see if they can offer any. I know that it would run through the county, but I'm just saying that might be a good group for you to round table this with.
I will ask. I suspect our pricing is fairly consistent because we do bids, and so we have a running ballpark of what our cost estimate should be. I know MSTU does the same thing. I suspect maybe where some of your issues come with your subdivisions are your benefits, your benefit units, and how you derive those units, your number of parcels or your size of your parcels in some cases. But sure, I'll put it out there. More minds, more good thoughts.
Yeah. So annually, it would take us $15 million for the roads, and we're putting aside $5 million, so we're running $10 million short every year.
We're regularly running $10 million in the hole on trying to keep up with our overall maintenance.
And Commissioner, that was based on the major road system when we looked at it in the past. Now, keep in mind, the sales tax we put in place, it's a huge help for the major road system. But most of the complaints we are receiving are from conditions like what you see in the picture. And there is no solution for that. We have been all the time telling people, you do an assessment, and we will go repave your roads and fix your roads. Some do, some don't. At the same time, we keep on using our resources to fix problems like this, that they are beyond pothole patching. Some of you have heard that more than once before.
No, never.
But the
Tracy?
problem is not going away.
Okay, so we've got 5 million, how much are we spending every year? 5 million?
And like Monier said, that's your major road network on our resurfacing and corrective measures there.
What are we spending on patching?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. It's just a cost of asphalt and the labor of our team.
I'd like to know that. I'd like to know how much we're spending on that. You know, not just the.
We've done that number before. I can
Yeah.
get that.
You know, and the total number, resources,
Labor, materials,
labor,
equipment.
materials, everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good question. Okay.
And since '89, the assessment program has been very effective, and we have been pushing it very hard. And many subdivisions
Great
that
benefit.
go through the assessment. So we need to keep the equity in the back of our head to make sure that we have asked other subdivisions to assess themselves to take care of the roads.
You know, and I'd also like to suggest to that, it's not surprising, some of your ones that have done assessments before, they should be coming up again for assessments. If with a program that's gone on for that long, they should be looking at a 20-year, 15 to 20-year life, knowing that they need to come back in and do it. I don't know that we've had that conversation. I've heard several folks say, oh, I already paid for an assessment, and it was that long ago.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think maybe one of the things that we might want to look at is moving forward when we do new assessments, we might want to mandate that, you know, they have something a provision in place for the next time that they have to get it done.
After they finish paying the assessment, then they will continue with an annual fee
Yep.
that can go into an account for their future overlay.
Yeah, I know that we're mandating it in new subdivisions that they have that in their HOAs. Anything new that's planned, that's been one of we put that in.
It's in your land development.
In the
or-
LDC.
Right.
Yeah.
It
so-
hasn't been truly tested. We haven't had any folks come in outside of some of our bigger program subdivisions, like you're on top of the worlds. We haven't had a lot of that
Yeah,
really get
most
tested
new
yet.
subdivision, you are seeing private road subdivisions.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody is platting the traditional public road type subdivisions.
And can you get me a list of the subdivisions that we have out there that we have not done an assessment for, and then the ones that we have done an assessment for? And I know that Sean can probably work with you on that as well.
Let me see what we can do. We should be able to come up with some level of a list.
Okay.
Thank y'all for your time.
When you're doing that, Tracy, just thinking about the non-paved roads as well. You know, looking on here, I'm just trying to go back and see. We've got 391 miles of unpaved roads, and so there is an upkeep to that as well.
There sure is. I have done that presentation before.
Okay.
That one is tremendous. The cost to get those folks put into the system is much more so. But it's a good challenge just as well.
Well, while you're breaking out cost, if you'll just include that as well.
Okay.
The challenge with a lot of those types of areas is that the assessments are so large that a lot of them would never be able to pay for it. We would have to figure out how we would do that. So we've put a lot of them on maintenance programs.
That was the new option with MSTU that showed up several years ago, adding a maintenance component for assessment.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll do that.
Okay, any other comments or requests of Tracy? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms.
Next
Stroud.
thing on the agenda, Commissioners, is to give you a quick update on
Nursing home.
3 strategic projects. But before we do that, I wanted also to let you know that we are working very quickly and very hard on the McGinley project, the Crossroad Economic Development project down there. Design is being completed on 484 and the one road going internally to the property. Roads and transportation working together to get this done. And we have the money, I'm reminding you, we got a grant from DEO the first round around, but we did not get any money on the second request. So we're gonna have to make use of the money we received so far, invest some county money, and to get this project ready and going. And the next thing would be the veteran nursing home, give you an update on that with Jeannie.
Good afternoon. Munir said to be brief, so I'll be brief. Jeannie Rickman, Assistant County Administrator for Public Services. So what I wanted to do this afternoon was give you a brief update on the legislative timeline for the State Veterans Nursing Facility project. So in 2018, Marion County received $500,000 from the legislature. Since that time, the State Division of Management Services is currently involved, and in conjunction with the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, contracted with a firm to provide a report for a potential veterans nursing home site selection in Marion County. We were asked to submit 3 proposed sites for their review and assessment in preparing that report. Staff submitted the following 3 sites, which I'll show you on the next 3 slides, and we can expect then to hear on that report in about 3 months.
So, Jeannie, can you tell us when that 3-month clock started ticking?
Well, we submitted them in October
Okay.
to a consulting firm. My understanding just today is that they are changing the consulting firm, so it's probably starting over with the assessment. They have a deadline until June 30 to get that report to the Veterans Affairs Office.
Okay.
But they've told us that they expect to have it done within 3 months.
Okay, thank you.
And first slide. Okay, so next slide. You just stay here. So the first site is Marion County owns this property. The site totals approximately 29.5 acres. It fronts the north side of Northeast 49th Street, located 800 feet east of the Northeast 49th Street and Old Jacksonville Road intersection. The second site, is it working? The second site, it totals approximately 40 acres. This is located just southeast of our facilities management office here on the McPherson complex, which Marion County also owns. And then the third site is located at Southwest 7th Avenue. You'll see it says Lake Louise, and the owner will donate 20 acres if this site is selected. So in 2019...
Well, that's awful nice of him.
It sure
What's that?
is.
I said, that's awful nice of him.
So in 2019, the board identified again this year the State Veterans Nursing Facility as a legislative priority. To continue this initiative, an appropriation request has been submitted to the legislature, both House and Senate, to cover planning, design, and engineering costs. Cost of a new veterans nursing facility is approximately, at this point, $58 million. But that's split between the federal government with 65% of its share, with the state's allocation of 35%. As a side note, as of this morning, approximately $87 million in appropriation requests have been filed already. So ours is in the mix.
Did you say 87 billion?
Million.
Million, okay.
Yes. And so with that, you have the appointment of Veterans Affairs Secretary. Governor DeSantis and I emailed a notice to you all that he had recommended Representative Danny Burgess to head the Veterans Affairs Department. Representative Burgess currently serves Pasco County since elected in 2014. So the vote will be taken at the next Governor's Cabinet meeting this Thursday on the 24th for that confirmation. And from there, we'll start scheduling meetings here in the very near future with not only the Veterans Affairs Office, but with our legislators. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Madam Chair, the only thing that I'm going to say is that I'm assuming that we are in communication with Congressman Marco's office as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, because they've been very instrumental in helping with this.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's
I would just mention the McPherson complex, that if we do get this selected, that we allow UF to come down and do just kind of some core samples for archaeological things, because of the old Indian mission that used to be someplace we know within a couple miles, but everybody kind of guesses where it's at. You know, just make sure that the old Indian mission wasn't actually up underneath the McPherson complex, because that's been one of the things that's thrown out, that because they don't know exactly where it was. We know that it was between.
I hope it's not on that side.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
that's
we
what I'm
have
saying.
to go
I'm
to
hoping.
site
I'm
number
hoping
2.
it's not there.
The third option?
No, I'm McPherson. Yeah,
Oh.
McPherson. But I severely doubt it, because it's several mile area, but they don't know exactly where. So, but still, I would let UF do some soil core. What's that, bore? Whatever they
Borings.
do, borings. And they're already over at Fort King doing borings, so
Oh,
they could just come over maybe on a day.
We will have to do that in our preliminary analysis to determine that everything is clear.
Okay.
And as we hear anything, well, I'll continue to update you with any further developments.
Thank you, Ms. Rickman.
Okay, next is the update on the convention center. It's not built yet.
Really?
Yeah, the report recommended 200,000 square feet. We have been having a lot of conversation back and forth with the number one site you selected. We are hearing lately that it's probably going to be more than 200,000 square feet. We have a meeting coming up this week, and hopefully after this meeting, I can bring you some very good news. The site that was looked at before, when the land use change amendment that came in front of you, it's the 20 acres that is owned by the school board. They are still working on that location, but the final location of the convention center may be shifting north or south. I don't know exactly how much, but it will still be in that same vicinity. Like I said, the meeting is later this week, and we are hoping we will be able to work out something that will be beneficial to the community. Okay? With that said, the last thing we want to give you an update on is the aquatic center, and that will be Jim Coulard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jim Coulard, Marion County Parks and Recreation Director, just here to give you a quick update on the Aquatic Center. In the packet, you see the two concepts that we've still stuck with here, right next to Rotary Sportsplex, site plan concept 1 and concept 2. Speaking with our DEP representatives, this is on 91 acres of state-owned land and about 8 acres of privately held land. They prefer us to pursue this option because it impacts the greenway less. Quick update, the application has been forwarded to DEP, and then we know we had an election. Our compadre David Clark has moved on, so now we have to go step back a little bit and rebuild some relationships with DEP within the land and recreation area. So
Where did he go?
The management services, chief of staff. So it was a good promotion for him. Really
Good promotion for him, bad
Loss.
for us.
Right. So we don't really know. I don't know, Jeannie, if you've heard of any other appointments to DEP yet, if there's been any other changes at that level. We are hoping that Eric Draper does remain on as the Florida Park Service Director. He's a good addition for the Florida Park Services, but we're not sure about state lands. That's one that we're going to really have to help and lift on. So with that, we did receive some pushback from some environmental groups about the impact on the greenway. Obviously, this is one of the only intact green spaces on that corner. We've already got an inmate work farm on one corner, the Baseline Road Trailhead on another, and a 4-H on the other corner. So some local environmentalists as well as some of the state environmental groups have been voicing their concerns about use of this property. So we're looking at actually developing a Plan C, which is actually modifying Rotary Sportsplex a little bit and making more of that impact on the already existing area. So it's within the same vicinity. I can go back to that slide for you to see. We do have the 5 soccer fields just to the west of where the aquatic center is being shown on that rendering. We could slide things over a little bit more, but that would displace the soccer fields. We are talking with the city of expanding Big Sun and possibly even looking at Shocker Park to add soccer fields there. So we're just getting Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C in line in case we get some pushback with the lease. That's all we're doing with this. And then funding, we did get some good news from our county attorney's office. Bed tax dollars have been deemed eligible for funding this project. We're also awarded a grant, $1 million grant from the Florida Hospital District not too long ago. So we're navigating through the funding plan to determine exactly which parts of the project will be eligible and used bed tax dollars. I was in touch with Loretta's staff last week. I said, now's the time to start these conversations with the VCB and TDC. There was no need in doing all that work until we got legal determination. Ocala Aquatics, we've got them committed to $850,000. I know their lease runs up at the school at the end of this month, so I have not heard from them about getting an extension on their lease at the pool. Haven't heard anything about that lately. And we also met with leaders of Advent Health and Ocala Regional. I think those meetings were very successful, Commissioner. Thank you for setting those up, and I believe it's time that we start getting ready to engage our local business community. Everyone's waiting on everybody else to start first. I think the bed tax funding initiative is really going to start getting people excited about it. Next thing is the lease, so we have to work in Tallahassee again.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to get started with Tallahassee as soon as we find a leader.
Yep.
Or determine
Who to talk to.
Who to talk to.
We had any conversations with David Clark as to which way he would send us, because he's been such a great advocate for us, and I'm sure he would give us good advice.
I'm leaning on Brian Bradner right now. He was the deputy director of the Florida Park Service, and he's been involved with us through the beginning. So he's been the ear.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Couillard.
Thank you, Jim. Based on this presentation, Commissioners, I believe we gave you one or more projects that touched on each of your 5 priorities. So we are on the same page. With that said, if you have any additional directions for me or things that you want us to work on, especially going into the budget preparation, is there any word of wisdom?
I would say they need to line up with those priorities. If you're asking for additional funding for some special projects, make sure that they're in alignment, would be my comments on that. And how far and where can we utilize sales tax dollars to take the burden off of the general fund? Or I appreciate your thoughts on that assessment fee as well, what that may look like in the future, and I think we'll just have to continue to legislate on that side. Lobby.
Hey, maybe we'll get it this year.
Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be wonderful.
And I think giving us some really good talking points on that would be very beneficial. Here are dollars that would majorly impact this community, should we get that through the legislature. That would be wonderful. Other thoughts or comments?
Yes, I had one comment that's kind of outside this. You want now or want to wait?
Maybe hold for just one moment. There was one more thing, and we didn't bring it up, but I know I'd ask our attorney to look to see, matching funds, dollars that we match, if there is opportunity for other matching funds. And I'll just say through the hospital district, if that's an opportunity to shift from the general fund to possibly things that they are charged with for the health and well-being of Marion County.
You're talking about the outside agencies that we fund?
Yes.
Yeah,
we partially fund.
Indeed, and we have an obligation to do so. But if there is an opportunity to look to see if there is partnership with them to assist with that, again, relieving some of that general fund dollars.
Okay.
If everybody...
Yeah, I would say, yeah, because there's some things that we can.
That matches with their mission.
Right. Plus
right.
also like Heart of Florida, because that matches with their mission, but like Langley gets a lot of federal dollars. Maybe if we can also help Heart of Florida pull those federal dollars, you know, see what it takes to do more like a Langley thing, where Langley gets almost 100% federal, you know, funding, it's compared to coming to the county and asking us for it.
Yeah, I think that option that was checked in the past, I believe the way they established their access point worked against Heart of Florida to be able to maximize the federal funding. And you can't go back and undo it.
Oh, okay.
Decisions that were previously made.
Years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I would say, you know, we've looked at some salary dollars on some departments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you can make that fit.
And that would be going into working on the proposed budget. Like we discussed in the past, we still have several departments we did not touch. I'm looking at all of them now. I don't know that we will be able to do all of them next year or not, but at least you will have some of them. And also, I would recommend, and I hope you will support me on this, to continue with the merit program, with the performance evaluation and merit program. We have been able to set 3% in the past. I believe the presentation from Michael Tomish included that 3% increase in the future for pay adjustments.
He's nodding his head yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Michael.
Very okay.
And we're gonna look at additional needs and prioritize them and bring them forward to you in the budget.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share mine and then bring it back to utilizing 2019 and 20, and with where we started, I think it is shaping up to be a year of thriving opportunities for us, and I'm looking forward to this year. So, Commissioner Gold?
Mine's just employee related. I was moving my offices recently and found my 1988 Employee of the Month plaque, and forgot that actually came up here, and I thought that might something that we might think about again, reinstating that they, you know, if we have an Employee of the Month that comes up on meetings and gets the plaque or something like that, and it might make it easier when you do your yearly assessments for the employees with our
the ideal team player.
Yeah, with the ideal team player out there and everything. And I thought it was nice. I had forgot completely about it, and I found it, and I'll put it up in my office so I can remember that one time I was a good employee. So.
Where was this at?
Where? Yeah. Oh, it was stacked in my other office storage.
No.
Marion County Board of Marion County Board of County Commissioners.
The fire department.
Fire department. 1988 October Employee of the Month. So that was good.
Commissioner Moore?
Just one thing I want to remind us is, you know, because we're right now in the good years, but as we look in the future, as recession years going to come, you know, we went through a bad recession. Hopefully the next one won't be as bad. But we also, as we look at things going into that budget season, we got to be cognizant of to set ourselves up to be a lot better, which this board has done a great job on diversifying the economy. So I don't think we're going to have that 14% unemployment, which is kudos to one that's not here and one that is here, that were there at this time that put that in place. And then I just was blessed enough to come behind and kind of help with that. But diversifying the economy is awesome. But, you know, the other part is we do have the recession. Next recession will come up probably in the next couple of years, and then definitely anyone that goes for re-election, it definitely will be in your next term. So that's where we got to look at that and make sure that we're well positioned for that, and just keep that in the back of our minds as we're going forward. You know, for the planning for this year, this is a great year. You know, we're thriving, but what about the years where it's kind of a famine year? You know, we've got to make sure that we do put things in place so that way when we get that time of famine, we don't lose employees, we don't lose services. You know.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have some responsibilities. I have my list of responsibilities, and I think that's falling for the most part on mine, and that is to come back with some opportunities for you to look at different vision statements, and we'll look at and finalize the tagline. We'll be working with the sales tax referendum to get the language that's necessary and engaging with our business community and testing out some language to go on the presidential preference ballot. So, okay, very good. Well, thank you all for your time today, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon, the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We are adjourned.
Real turnaround.
I'm not a real hard rapper.